Thank you.
No problem. Chaz Smith, it is February 2nd, 2024. We have a gargantuan show today.
It is a day that shall live in history, David Lee Scales.
It's been a crazy 2024, a year of surfing already, and it's only 1 month in.
I mean, it seems like the surf gods just gifted Beach Grit and only Beach Grit everything it wanted at the start of this year. We have transgendered fures. We have Filipe Toledo showing his lack of spine once again. It's perfect.
It really is crazy. Huge news stories, tons of fun on the internet. We're going to basically, poke fun, have fun with Filipe Toledo and the WSL. We're going to wade into treacherous waters with the transgender conversation, but then I'm going to bring it back and we're just going to lighten the mood
by
and
making
feel
fun of
great.
Filipe Toledo again.
What?
By making fun of Filipe Toledo again.
We're going to bring it back and everybody's going to feel great by the end of the show with a pros in the wild and a couple of listener line calls and emails. So
wonderful. Real quick, are you watching? I got to get the live stream up. I have it loaded, ready to go. If it goes live today, do you have any idea if the Pipeline Pro will run again today?
I don't know. I have not checked the forecast as of 2 days ago. And so we could just check it in real time as we're going. So I want to open with a couple of important bits of news. Weekend vans. We've been talking about weekend vans. They will be on display this weekend at Camp Shred.
They sure will be. For anyone who has not gone to Camp Shred or doesn't know what it is at Cardiff State Beach. They basically take over the entire campground there. And each campsite has a different either surf retailer, surfboard, shaper, all surf adjacent, surf, everything. Anything you want to do with surf. Chris Cote usually plays, his band plays there, which is a great thing to see. Completely worth a rundown to Camp Shred, and weekend vans being there only makes it better.
Completely. So we've talked about them for the last month or so, and we just figured this would be a great opportunity to go see it in action. They're going to be set up at the JS booth. So JS surfboards, you'll see the weekend vans, family-friendly bunk bed setup built out into the camper van, into the Sprinter van, basically. They're going to stock it with LaCroix, ice cold LaCroix with a solar powered refrigerator. So those things are kitted with a solar powered fridge. So cool way to check them out.
I would imagine too that, if you're in the market or thinking about getting one, a Sprinter, thinking about getting it kitted out, that going to actually step inside one, see how it feels and whatnot would be entirely valuable.
Exactly. And we failed to state, Camp Shred is actually a surfboard demo. So all of those surfboard manufacturers that are there with booths have demo boards that you could take out straight out front.
I have a quick question about this, David Lee Scale. It starts tomorrow, does it not?
I believe so, yeah.
It has dumped rain and gross water.
Dirty
waters. But what happens? They booked out the whole campground, so I would imagine just be brave, unlike our two-time reigning world champion, and paddle out anyway.
I think they're going to hold the event no matter what. Whether you decide to surf or not is up to you. But boards will be available, and it's still worth going to, even if you don't surf.
It's totally awesome. I mean, it is it is one of the funner events. To do it at the campground is a great idea.
Yeah. So, and go to weekendvans.com if you need a Sprinter van or you want one kitted out, or you have one that you want them to it out for you. Go to weekendvans.com, and then on Instagram at weekendvans. They are currently working on our podcast van right now, so that should be up and running. I don't know when. He gave me a date. I forget what the date was, but within a month or so, I'd say. The other exciting news is we give away a surfboard every month, and this morning I picked at random with a Wheel of Fortune style app on my phone one of our lucky supporters to win the Timber Surf Co. surfboard, and that is one Russell Gardner.
Russell Gardner. Where does Russell Gardner come to us from, David Lee Scales?
He just replied to the email. It looks like he's in North County, San Diego, San Marcos.
Boom. Way to go, Russell Gardner. Come down to pick it up at Camp Shred.
That makes it so much easier to deliver the surfboard. I'm always worried they're going to be in Australia or something. We got to ship the board across the world.
Yep.
So this board is manufactured in Santa Cruz, Timber Surf Co. Check them out. Ryan Lynch is the master behind that. his whole ambition is, obviously people talk about sustainability. His is very specific. It's to eradicate resin from the surfboard manufacturing process. And so
Jeez.
he's doing it with like a timber layup. He makes corkies, and they're incredible, well constructed. They surf incredibly well. He's got Austin Smith Ford from Santa Cruz riding his boards, just shredding on them.
Have you surfed one?
So, no, I haven't. I
Okay,
get myself in a predicament where we're giving away all these surfboards. I want every single one of them.
yeah.
And so for the first couple of years, I would. And now I have too many surfboards and not enough time to surf. And so I don't want to, dismiss the boards at all. I want to ride them. It's just I don't need another surfboard.
I hear you, but sometimes a surfboard comes along like a timber surfboard
I
that
know.
is radically revolutionary. And I look at that board and I say, I sure would like to try that. I've ridden, I know what I do on a, foam and fiberglass board, but maybe the only thing holding me back from a mid-level QS ability is timber tech.
It could be.
It could be the
Um,
key that like I've just been waiting. My body's been waiting for this the whole time. I don't know.
I
Maybe.
know. I know. Well, the other detail here is it's not financially prudent or viable to buy a new surfboard every single month. And we want to support these guys. You know what I mean? We don't want to ask them for freebies or even take a freebie. We want to support them and pay for them. So I just can't afford it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
But
Borrowing boards and refusing to turn them is a thing only real assholes do.
yes, that is right. Who wears sunglasses indoors as well. Um, so just for the record, anybody who wants to get in on these giveaways, support us for $5 a month. It is the backbone of our business. It is building blocks of the business. You can do it at surfsplendorpodcast.com. You can cancel it anytime. So $5 a month, you probably won't even notice it missing, but it goes a long way towards supporting our work, improving in the quality. We've started to hire, freelancers for video production and stuff like that. So it really does support us. There's hard costs involved here. And then it gets you in on these giveaways automatically. And it's a smoking deal for $5. It's
To win
well
a
worth the price of
surfboard?
admission.
Oh my goodness. And thank
Do you
you
want
to
it?
everyone.
And do you want to know what we're giving away at the end of this month?
What?
Albums collab project with Coco Ho, an
No.
EXO Coco surfboard.
No, fresh. See, I love this too. We're not giving away here on this podcast. We're not giving away boards that have been sitting at the back. One time, let me tell you a story, David Lee Scales, since we have a monster show. I'm sure we have time for a lot of extra fat here. Uh, One time, Mike Raiola of Lost Surfboards did like some advertise or Lost Early Days of Beach Crate did an advertising deal. Anybody who knows Mike Raiola knows that he is let's call him a thrifty businessman. And so was trying to pay us with surfboards instead of money. And so finally, I think Derek was over. Yeah, Derek had come over from Australia and we were going to collect the debt. And so finally, Derek was like, okay, fine. Like he wasn't budging. So he took us into what's the shop there in San Clemente?
Catalyst.
Catalyst, and started searching for the yellowest boards that he could find. Catalyst is like, it's a real pristine, like all boards, freshies, just that white, brand new, beautiful surfboard. He went around trying to find the yellowest ones he could to pay us instead of money that he owed. Mike
That is
Rayola. But
incredible.
that's not what we do here, all to say. We give the freshest just off, just like literally just out of the mind of both Matt Parker and Coco Ho is this EXO Coco board. So yeah, freshies, not yellows.
And we've talked about the revolutionary aspect of it's an entirely female designed uh, board, board line. And so that's super cool too. So basically, this is a surfboard for a woman, for a female. And what we decided was there's a good chance a male is going to win this thing. We want to advertise the Coco thing, talk about it, discuss why those boards, how you design a board for a female as opposed to a male. And so I'm going to have that conversation with Matt Parker, and I'm going to publish that on Monday, this coming week. So everybody can listen to that. But if a male wins the board and doesn't have a female in his life who surfs that he can gift the Coco board to, we're going to make an album available to him.
Wow. I mean, talk about but imagine the conundrum now. Imagine the pickle that the likely male winner, now it's, do you gift or do you take? Is it better to give or receive is going to be the real problem
Well,
this winter will have to deal with.
it will be a tools to live by on the first week of March when we
Perfect.
pick the winner. But I'll tell you what, if I won that cocoa board, I'd probably take the cocoa board and try to ride it myself just out of curiosity.
Why not? I
Yeah,
mean, what's to say, especially in this genderless world we live in, David Lee Scales? That board's not for
exactly.
women. That board might be for you.
It could unlock some unknown potential that you're talking about, and you can surf up your ability up to a Midland QSer.
Yeah.
Fair to Midland QSer. All right. Well, hey, the hugest story of the week undoubtedly is not the Pipe Pro. It's Felipe Toledo backing out of his heat at the Pipe Pro because the waves are too big.
I mean, you cannot, the WSL said it, and I believed it at the time. No, I didn't. I said, no, this, you can't script this thing is garbage, but you can't script this. It is too perfect. It is, this would defy, I mean, who are the best script writers, screenplay writers of our time? We could say maybe Mike White, who did White Lotus, or we could like, not even Hollywood's greatest genius in his prime could come up with this storyline.
No, because the reason we ended up here is they're so bad at their job. They misunderstand surfing so much, the powers that be at the WSL, that they're just like, they don't even know where the target is. They're
Yeah.
missing the target so bad. So all the cards kind of fall down, and you're just like, what? How does this even happen? Where Pipeline is so inconsequential that the world champ doesn't even have to show up to surf it, and he'll still end up being the world champ next year too. Whereas that's professional competitive surfing. Whereas in the real surf world, Pipeline is all that matters.
I mean,
Nothing else matters until you can do it at pipe. But on professional competitive surfing, doesn't matter at all.
they just really screwed up, right? This is what happens when you have non-surfers, Eric Logan, Sophie Goldschmidt. This was Eric Logan's big brainchild, right? Let's
Yeah.
just all put it directly on the poo-poo touch of 1 year, 3 years ago or whatever. It was like the final actually ended up, but it was between Idolo and Gabe at Pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And so they decided we're going to remanufacture this, except they botched their pipeline scheduling. So had to, or decided to start with pipeline because of botched scheduling. And then for whatever reason, decided to end at lower trestles and then ink that forever into, or for the next, it'll be 5 years by the time they're done with this current run of that's where the uh, champion is crowned. Everybody knows that. Don't have to get into that. But it's just, that is just a mistake. And it just shows that pro surfing is broken. But the surf fan, I think, doesn't regard the winner anymore. We don't care. We know in our hearts who the best surfer every year is. And it is not Felipe Toledo, right? It hasn't been. He's the best small wave surfer. Yeah, that's great. And
Yeah.
we applaud him for that. But he has not been the best surfer. The fact, I mean, there's so many nuggets to this story, David Lee Scales, so many different angles and uh little alleyways to meander down. That's what makes it so fun. But I mean, I don't even know where to start, to be
So
honest.
let me start by connecting dots across a number of shows from the past month or two. Elo's poo poo touch, right?
The poo-poo touch.
If Elo was preparing food with his poo poo touch and you ate that food, you know what you would get?
Food poisoning.
Food poisoning. Elo's poo poo touch is the direct line to Felipe Toledo's food poisoning.
It's true. I mean, I don't like to say that we're prescient and know everything, but a lot of times it feels that way.
Hey, a lot of times it feels like we're just really talking crap. And I feel like people who maybe, don't appreciate the humor or whatever, they would look at us and just be like, you guys are so far off base. You just want to make fun of people. However, go back and track the things that came to fruition that we were pointing out 6 months in advance, which, by the way, it's obvious. It's not that other people don't see it. It's kind of in the ether. It's just the rest of surf media can't or won't talk about it. We're
And
the only
so
ones talking about it publicly.
really, let's briefly describe what went down at In Case. I'm sure everyone has seen it, but like it's worth discussing for those who, haven't been in message boards and stuff like that, who maybe caught the heat wherein Felipe Toledo got a 1.77 heat total, even though it was during his heat. You don't want to call it, clearly was not perfect pipe, but there was big waves and plenty of them, enough so that the two other guys in his heat both got eights, right? or one got a high 7, one got an 8. Like there, and
I've
those
got it
scores
right here.
they weren't
So
just throwing those scores out. Like,
Samuel Pupo won the heat with 13-point heat total. Cheyenne Crawford had an 8-point ride, but then not a backup score. So finished the heat with a 9.27. Filipe Toledo sat with priority up until 6 minutes left in the heat. He sat with priority through almost the entire heat. With 6 minutes left, he went on a not hollow left. He went on a left that was not bowled out and just kind of raced to the shoulder and kicked out. So he got a 0.5.
yeah.
Then with very like 30 seconds left, he took off on the shoulder of a wave, again, not barreling, and did a snap and got a 127. So this is all after years of him not going in big barreling surf and us pointing that out and questioning his bravado and really not even questioning it for the last couple of years, just straight calling him out for being scared. It's because every other event throughout the season, he is an absolute shark in the lineup. So not only does he get more than 2 waves per heat, he's paddle battling people, he's dominating the lineup. That is his style of surfing and his style of surfing heats. The only events throughout the season that he is not a shark in the lineup are Chopu and Pipeline. Full
Which
stop. So going into this, and certainly coming off of a world title, and this is the first heat of the year, we want to see our world champ go out there and show that same dominance that he does throughout the rest of the events on tour. And the big pipe, there's that question mark of like, what is he going to do now? And that we described in heat number 1 is what he did.
the real problem here with Felipe, how do you solve a problem like Felipe, is that his spinelessness is spreading. It used to only be Chopu, right? I mean, maybe he was scared of other waves, but he had surfed pipe, and though he had never gotten excellent scores out at Pipeline and wasn't like, you know, airdropping into cavernous, lefts and coming out behind the spit, but I don't remember him putting on a chicken shit performance out there, like him bobbing out the back, terrified. That's what he did this time. He literally sat with that priority that, as you described, he pretended to go. He purposefully got himself out of position so he wouldn't have to paddle for real waves. So I think herein lies the nugget of the whole thing, and his response, which we need to spend much time upon too, is that he was allowed to be chicken at Chopu and that be okay. He had people defending him for being a chicken out there. People saying, why should he go? Right? Like, all he's going to do, like Kelly Slater defended him. Why should he? He's going to risk injury where he's got his eye on the prize, which is winning championships. And the championships are now at lower trestles. So, and there was like a fair amount of people making this argument. Like, what's in it for him to go at Chopu? This got into his head. And this, I think, has now set the tear in his heart. Maybe it was fleeting. Maybe it could have been solved at some point. Now he thinks he is justified in having this tear. His response, which we should read in full, but so of course, he doesn't paddle. He looks like a complete chicken. Live first heat that anyone's watched, the 2-time and reigning world champion surf in the new season, and he's cowering. He's clearly cowering out the back. His response to that is not going dark, being ashamed, saying whatever. And of course he withdraws with food poisoning, which is the
Well,
most hilarious thing.
that's really when you think that heat 1, he couldn't be any more cowardly. Heat 2 trumped it.
Yeah,
He literally did not paddle out for a second heat and claimed that he had food poisoning and he was too sick to surf. So the WSL didn't run the other 2 surfers in the heat because it's only, the third place finisher gets eliminated. So the other 2 get a walkthrough. And so then the question, very kind of small question pops up is, does he have food poisoning or not? Anybody with half a sense is like, no, obviously that's a phony story. I'm just, I'm going to straight out say that was completely fabricated.
Well, and I think it truly points to the genuine terror in his heart and the growing terror, right? Is that a lot of people in the comments pointed out anybody who's been terrified, what is the euphemism used for terror? I was so scared I shit my pants. right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which that stomach upset, that feeling of like, oh, like I've been terrified like that before, right? Like getting grabbed by Hezbollah and sitting there thinking I'm going to die. I had that. You just get stomach sick, and I think that's what Philippe had, a tear so big that he had a physical reaction to it. Now,
That
here's
he
the thing
mistook as food
that
poisoning.
he, and or, yeah, like the lies you tell yourself, right?
Right.
Told himself that
Exactly.
lie. Oh, that's why I didn't. So, but all this is baking in. So his tear is growing and getting like tear is, let's say it's a disease. You have to attack that disease, right? Let's see who attacked that disease. We have basically everyone, but we can appoint, or any pro surfer worth their salt has attacked the disease of terror, including Kelly Slater. He wasn't born a big wave charger. He went out and learned and did it, and now is one of the best surfers in the world at pipeline, at cloud break, at real waves of consequence. We have Adriano de Sousa, Filipe Toledo's countryman, who was not good at pipe, maybe not scared, but definitely not good. Went out with Jamie O'Brien for months, if not years, and trained and did it, conquered his fear, right? Filipe Toledo has been coddled to the point of you don't have to conquer your fear. Your fear is okay. Your fear is, in fact, smart. Your fear is, keeps you the champion, et cetera, et cetera. So, what happens then after he becomes rightly the butt of every joke on surf internet is to release a defiant statement to my armchair critics, to those like the classic, to those sitting at home, I think he called them armchair champions, in fact,
Well,
hoisting, or yeah, read the entire statement.
he was specifically, I mean, CJ Hobgood commented on that post. And so I feel like maybe Gabe was talking about him specifically because that was the only world champ that I saw leave a funny comment about Philippe. But what Felipe said was to the critics on duty and the world champions who comment on social networks outside, believe what you want. I'm not here to prove anything to you. My health is my priority. To those cheering me on, thank you very much. We are together, and haha, we will be back better and stronger.
I mean, so he should have been ashamed. He should feel shame. Instead of feeling shame, he feels defiant. He feels, to my critics, I have nothing to prove to you, which
Yeah.
is, are you kidding me? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, he thinks that his two championships are worth something. They're utterly worthless. The poo poo
Yeah.
touch made those things worthless. Any surfer knows, right? You can maybe convince some non-surfing person that, oh, I'm a two-time world champion, and they can maybe think, oh, cool, wow, you're the surf champion. Anybody who surfs now knows that his championships are heavy with asterisks, both of them, and that he's a sissy, and that charging is part of what we want from our surfers. We want them to go, right? And again, it should go without stating, I'm so very tired though of the argument, well, you wouldn't go. I'm not a professional surfer
Yeah.
with the talent and ability of Filipe Toledo, where the only thing I'm lacking is heart. I
Yeah.
mean, so stop that right now. This is Filipe Toledo's duty. It's his job. It's
You said
his,
duty.
yeah. It is this is what he needs to do to get
The
the fact that he thinks he doesn't have to. I have nothing to prove. Like,
well,
we all have stuff to prove.
so I want to talk about him fighting against his critics because that's totally whack, and I'll get to that in a second. But I do want to address whether or not he had food poisoning. If you've ever had food poisoning, you don't even have the ability to pick up your phone and write a diatribe against your critics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you are laid out
If
and
you
you're laid
actually,
out in
yeah,
the bathroom and it transitions between vomiting and diarrhea. And you're just laying on the ground trying to get the cold tile to make you feel better. You know
that
what I
is
mean? Like that is where you're at.
That is a
So,
great point. To call it food poisoning, if you are food poisoned, like you have a serious problem. You're
ex-
exactly right.
if for at least
Days.
half a day,
Yeah.
maybe not, maybe 24 hours, right? So he was literally fighting with people on the internet a couple hours later.
Yeah.
Secondly, I've heard from boots on the ground, they saw him socializing that afternoon and drinking a beer.
Yeah.
So there's that. He also had no indication of food poisoning in that earlier heat. What he did have was the look of fear by not going on waves and sitting until there was 6 minutes left. So all evidence leading up to it is no indication. 2 hours later, apparently he has food poisoning, which, by the way, if you're eating the on-site food, other people would have gotten food poisoning as well. You're not
I
the
mean,
only person who gets food poisoning, right? So very, very unlikely. And then 2 hours after that, he's fighting with people on the internet and is seen socializing and drinking beer. So the food poisoning thing is full BS as far as
yeah.
I'm concerned. Now, addressing him not charging in big waves and him fighting against his critics. A listener wrote this, and I could summarize it in my own words, but it probably wouldn't do it justice because I think the listener just put it better. What he said was, "What makes me more mad than him not going on waves of consequence and heats is his repeated response to his critics. Is that his repeated response to his critics is, I don't have to prove anything to you." That response shows the heart of the problem as he isn't owning his failure as a professional surfer representing his sponsor's country and the WSL. His expectation that everyone would feel bad for him or maintain the wall of positive noise and look the other way when he doesn't go on waves and heats is ridiculous. Scrutiny is a healthy concept in competitive sports, and acknowledging your weakness is part of the game. The lion facade with everything cheetah pattern, by the way, why is it cheetah pattern if he's all about being a lion, is further gaslighting all of the fans as to try to convince us that he is courageous and that we should celebrate that in him. What a perfect example of the WSL product and their changes to the sport. Here's your two-time world champion sitting in a yellow jersey with over a lion tattoo with cheetah spray on his board and his shorts, bobbing on the shoulder like a buoy with priority on an empty lineup at glassy 8 to 10 foot pipe and back door, only to go on two mush burgers. Something is terribly wrong here.
I mean, that's the thing. The problem is we will all move on. The surf punditry and the fun talk that we have, and that we're going to live to make fun of somebody another day. Filipe Toledo will be far in the rearview mirror. Filipe Toledo's got to live with himself. Like, he doesn't have to solve his lack of spine for me or you or the person making fun. He has to solve his lack of spine for himself because he has to live the rest of his life with himself. And eventually, your self delusion wears thin. Like,
Yeah,
for sure, at
always.
3 a.m., he's going to wake up, eyes bing. He's going to look at the ceiling and think, I'm a chicken. And no, I am a chicken. Now, what do you do with that, right? Like, you can wake up the next morning and start defending yourself again, or you can say, I'm a chicken. Do I want to be a chicken or not? That's your first thing, right? If you want to
Yeah.
be a chicken, Felipe Toledo, doors wide open. Come out and say, I'm scared and I don't want to fix that, right? Everybody will think a lot less of you, but they'll at least think more of you than you publicly self-deluding, right?
I would love that. If he straight out said, like,
I'm
I'm
a chicken.
scared out of my mind.
Yeah,
I've
we
somehow been able to win these titles because the WSL's format is so whack, but I'm scared out of my mind. I'm hoping to confront it. I'm trying to learn. Maybe I'm going to employ Shane Dorian or something and like figure it out. But right now I'm scared.
yeah,
That'd
I
be
mean,
fine.
it's exactly what Strider said in the water, which was amazing, right? Strider was like, he's pulling back. He's got to fix this. Like, there's ways to fix it. He has, and again, for the person who's like, just not making fun of Felipe Toledo, you wouldn't go. Uh, I also don't have access to coaches and to like he could tap anyone. This story would be the best story in surfing for Felipe Toledo to actually conquer his fears.
Yeah,
To conquer your fears, you have to admit you do have fears.
correct.
But then he could go tap anybody and say, take me out to Pipeline and just teach me. Take me out to Chopu. Let's baby step it up, right? Let's take me out on the safe days. Show me where to sit. Show me how you do. Let me take a couple. Take me, like, I will pay you handsomely for this because I want to conquer my fear. But
Yep.
that's like, if
Which
he
is
just,
what a lot of other people do, by the way, including a bunch of the surfers on the female side. Obviously, the Adriana de Souza example that you gave earlier with Jamie O'Brien, and they do it over the course of years.
what we all do in our own lives with not necessarily surfing, but with whatever
Yeah.
thing is like, is our boogeyman, our own personal boogeymans, right? Or boogie women's or boogie thems. We look in the mirror and we say, do we want to confront this or not? And then when we do decide, everybody, this is like life. And the worst thing you can do is say, no, this is not my boogeyman. Shame on you for saying, that I'm not good at this thing or
Yeah.
whatever. You're an idiot. Like,
It,
Felipe Toledo has to live with Felipe Toledo, and this will shame him. It'll shame his family. His kids will look at him differently. Like they all know. Like, I mean,
Brutal.
but it's
Well,
true.
well,
They'll know. They'll wake up and look at dad one day and say, Dad's a chicken.
it's one thing to say that there's a chink in the armor because he doesn't surf big waves. That's not the biggest chink. It's the mindset that you are talking about. The unwillingness to acknowledge where your limitation lies and being willing to address it and willing to work on it. That shows this huge vulnerability in him that he needs to suss out because it's going to undermine the rest of his strengths.
I mean, and again, like you say, and I say too, I suppose, if he just admitted fear, that's the first step. But you're really not allowed to be scared as a professional surfer on the championship tour, right? Like you're not, so you can admit it. That's the first step. That's fine. And everyone would applaud Filipe Toledo if you came out and said, yes, I'm scared. And then there would be steps for you to take, right? There is ways for you to conquer that fear. Again, Kelly Slater was not born, I think, fearless. And I think Slater has talked a lot about it, about going out and learning the ropes at, difficult waves. Because guess what Kelly has that I don't have, you don't have, nobody has? A bunch of skill. Guess what you have, Filipe Toledo, that I don't have, you don't have? I mean, and by you, I'm talking to David Lee Scales, unless he gets on the XO Coco board, is like buckets, overflowing buckets of skill, of lightning fast reflexes, of ways to manipulate a surfboard to get it to do things that I can't do, average man can't do, not even half of the best surfers in the world can do, not even the most of the best surfers in the world can do. You, Filipe Toledo, have an ability and skill that you are making a mockery of. That's a real bummer.
Look at Cade Madson's, rookie on tour, probably doesn't have much experience out at pipe at all. Look at the wave that he went on. You know what I
Dumped
mean? Like he
over the
doesn't.
falls, went
I'm,
top to bottom, and got like that had to hurt. That had to hurt bad.
it had to be very, very, very scary. And
Yeah,
he went. He confronted the fear and he went. With not as much of the talent as Felipe Toledo, not the world titles, none of it. And so that's what we want to see out of our surfers. If the WSL designed a world tour where there were waves of consequence, Callum Robson would actually rank higher than Felipe Toledo. You know what I
I,
mean?
for
Like this,
sure.
this is more of an indictment of the WSL and their venues on tour and the style of waves that they run in than it is of Felipe. Felipe, he's not even gaming the system. He's just surfing to the system and it suits him. It happens to suit small wave surf prowess right now. But Callum Robson, who's just probably making 1/10 the amount of money as
Bon
Felipe
soy.
Toledo.
He's making that soy milk money.
Exactly. His bravado, that's what we want to see. That's the
After
hero stuff. That's somebody whose name you barely know, who's not really making a living, going out there, confronting their fear, putting all of their talent on the line against Mother Nature and getting blown out of the barrel. And he did it
that's what
last year too. You know what I
that's
mean?
what
Like,
that's why we watch professional surfing. That's
yeah.
why we watch it for that. We don't watch professional surfing to see, flippy airs at lower trestles. Sure, if that's what we have to watch, then that's what we will watch. But the heart and essence of professional surfing is pipeline. It is Derek Ho winning pipeline with a broken hand. It is all of the,
Mike.
or sorry, Mike Ho winning it with a broken hand. It is the gladiators who go out there and do battle. And back to Callum Robson, that heat to me is the very essence of professional surfing at its best, right? So what we have is Robson getting absolutely stuffed by Gabriel Medina, dangerously stuffed by Medina, which was awesome. Like I loved Gabe was back at that moment. For those who haven't seen it, Gabe had priority. Callum took a deep wave, a perfect, beautiful pipe wave. Gabe shoulder hopped him, making him straighten out straight in the like, yeah, it was like dirty and mean and perfectly Gabe. I love to see it. But then Robson went on and beat him.
Yeah.
Won. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah. Really impressive stuff against the guy who's known for being the best gamer in the business.
Yep.
Um, so I was interviewing, well, I'm just going to play this. We were talking about don't ever give music recommendations because nobody's going to listen. This guy has the opposite take on that.
All right. So I know that we vent a lot about how the WSL has no clue, but I thought the easiest way to see this is just look at the music. Look at the music that they play on the webcast. It's not anything that a surfer of any age would ever listen to. All right, so I don't think I got it right last time, so I'm going to make my point a different way.
He fumbled at the end of one call and then called back, so I'm just giving you both of them.
Think about how many incredible songs and bands that you learned about because you heard them on a surf video for the first time. Think about how influential surf and skate and snowboard videos were on your music preferences when you were growing up, today even. Now think about the fact that the music that they use for every WSL piece of content is the shittiest thing I've ever heard, and no surfer would ever listen to it. That tells you all you need to know right there. Work.
We were talking a couple of weeks ago about don't ever send anybody music recommendations because they're never going to listen to them. The flip side of that is when you do hear somebody's music preferences, if they're bad, like if they have awful music taste, it says a lot about them. You know what I mean? Like if somebody,
if window to their soul.
It really is, dude. If you have somebody who you're like, oh, I kind of like this person, and then you figure out they love dubstep or something, you're just like, what? That can't be right. And the WSL's musical aesthetic says everything we need to know. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's weird. That's what it is. It's like everything they do now. To be honest, I'm not even mad at the WSL anymore. They very clearly have no idea what they're doing. It's run. There is surfers in the room. You got your striders, you got your, whoever. But the whatever decision. And when I talk to Chris Cote, wonderful Chris Cote, positive man, Chris Cote, who won't say anything negative. Right. The feeling you get, Chris Cote is in the room. Nobody's asking him his opinion. Like decisions are being made at the top by non-surfers who know nothing for non-surfing reasons. And then that all gets passed down and everybody kind of scratches their head. And if they want to be positive and try to go along and get along, they do it. See Chris Cote. If they want to be mad about it, they point fingers like us. But really there's no surfer in the room.
That's what I was going to say is the surfers in the room who did have a critical assessment of the WSL's decision-making have since left the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so they know they can keep Chris on, or Chris is happy to stay on because he's not going to question the direction of anything. They tell him to stand on the stage and act like Bruce Buffer at Lowers and, basically turn it into a circus. He's going to grab the mic and do it.
Sure. That's what they want. That's what I'll give them. And good. Yeah. But it's such a, yeah, I mean, it just all goes without even saying anymore that this type event, being only watching it really. And of course I like that one day, the good performances that we saw, again, like Robson's, I watched how much did you watch of that day? I watched a good portion.
The entirety of it.
Yeah, I watched a good 75%, but it's just deflating knowing that it doesn't matter.
That's the problem, yeah.
A little bit deflating. If you're going to be a pro surf fan, which we are, right? Then you want Pipeline to matter, even though, and for the purists out there, you can't do professional surfing anyway. You can't judge it. It's, a hard soul sport, blah, blah. I fully get you. I understand. But if we're going to have this, then, okay, it's just a little added fun to have professional surfing. But making Pipeline not matter is are you kidding me, man?
Well, that's exactly how I felt. Was I turned on the event, the waves are pumping. I see a bunch of, good surfing right out of the gates. I was amped. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I love. And then seeing how the day kind of transpires and knowing that none of it's going to matter at the end of the year when it comes down to points makes me feel like it's a wasted investment on my behalf.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am emotionally investing each heat, whose storyline is what, who's doing what, how do they look for the rest of the season? And then I realize they're going to undercut it all at the end of the year. And so what am I doing here? My investment is almost a waste of time.
Completely. To get excited, to get, to even enjoy it feels like a waste of time because I mean, that's what even watching. So I watched a whole ton on the opening day, and throughout a bunch of it, I was thinking I should be doing better things right now. And
Yeah.
then like that shouldn't be the nagging feeling. I don't, when I'm
No.
sitting and watching a football game that I want to watch, or a basketball game I want to watch, or any sporting event I want to watch, the constant refrain in my mind is not, I should be doing something better right now. Like that's what I'm doing. I chose to enjoy this thing, and that's what I'm doing. With
Yeah.
surfing, it's constant when I'm watching it these days. It's just, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. This is my stinking job.
I know.
And I think
Well,
I'm wasting my time watching surfing.
Well, the funny thing is, that's all that we're going to say about the Pipe Pro today. You know, like this is the only storyline that mattered was Felipe Toledo. Everything else, by the way, speaking of inconsequential, everything else that happens on day one doesn't even matter because
4 people leave.
4 people leave. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of the real quick, before we get to drinkag1.com/surf and
I'm
all of
slugging
the
it.
wonderful benefits.
I'm slugging it right now. Anybody who sees this green juice and thinks, wow, that looks nutritious, delicious, you were right. It is. Get it at drinkag1.com/surf.
I'll tell you how you know it's delicious. Do you want to know how you know it's delicious, David Lee Scales? Hold that back up
Because
to
you
the
look
camera.
forward to it every morning.
I do, but hold that up to the camera real quick. For those who can't see, there is a beautiful layer of foam on top. Now, anything that has a beautiful layer of foam on top is, by definition, delicious. We have cappuccinos. We have, I don't know, we have whipped cream.
Guinness.
We have Guinness. Anything that has that float is, you know, it's delicious. AG1 has that float.
Drinkag1.com/surf has that float. Anyways, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, but I was going to say about
something about the rookies or the 4 that got eliminated that day is where we were going.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, I was gonna ask if one of those 3, I guess 4, happened to be your survival league pick.
I know we didn't reveal our picks last week. No, I am still alive. I went for the obvious and just picked John.
Okay, so that's what I did last year. Last year, I thought my survival league, what I'm going to do, my strategy is just going to pick whoever the best surfer on the draw is, irregardless of where they're surfing, right? Because it is a kind of best. And of course, you can then weigh, okay, who's best at pipeline, right?
Right.
And who did Baron Mamiya go out first? Some real pipe specialist, not this year, but some real pipe specialist went out last year first. Seth Moniz. Exactly. Yeah. And like devastated the field. I think 67% of the survival league field was lost at pipeline and a bunch of that was Seth Moniz.
Because he was in the final the year before too.
Precisely. And an obvious choice at pipe. But for me, like in my strategies, I suppose, experience and all this, winning, like a history of winning trumps somebody being really good at a wave. So
yeah.
But this year I went different.
What'd you do?
I picked and went on a roller coaster, snuck through Yago Dora.
Wow.
I went out on Yago last year. Yago, I made it pretty far last year. I definitely made it past the cut. I can't remember how far I made it, but Yago was the one who took me out. I think I lost to, I might have even made it to Chopu, and Yago might have killed me at Chopes, but anyway, can't remember. But all to say is, I felt like, hair of the dog, the get back on the horse. I feel that these aphorisms, it's the hair of the dog that bit you, and it was Yago Dora who bit me.
Yep.
Had to do hair.
Well, let's see. We're still not past the round of 32 yet, so he could still come back to bite. But yeah, I just figured my original pick, I didn't want to say it last week, was going to be Kelly. Because I'm like, I don't need Kelly for the rest of the year. But I could use him at pipe if the waves are good. I was kind of waiting to see what the forecast was going to do. But
that kind of thinking bites people though.
I've been bitten so many times in this by trying to be sophisticated. And so I go, you know what? who's going to win this event? John's going to win this event. I'm picking John.
Yeah,
who cares? I would like to use him. I would like to use him at Margaret as well, but screw it. I'm going to use him now because I need to get through this event before I get to Margaret.
I mean, that's the thing. Looking down, they always talk about it in sports, like, preparing for the game that you're going to play and then losing sight of your weak opponent right in front of you and losing.
Right.
This survival league, in order to win down the road, you got to win today.
Exactly. Well, let's get on with the show. Chas Smith hates surfing. Chas Smith responds to boycott rip curl transgender furor.
I did.
I didn't watch the video.
I waded right into the sticky and touchy subject of trans.
Can you bring us up to speed on what's transpired since Bethany Hamilton has been let go by Rip Curl?
So I think this whole thing will be taught in public relations and marketing firms, college courses for history of the way not to handle something. So Rip Curl posted a celebration of, like, I don't know if they were releasing I think they were releasing a new line of swimsuits. And so on Instagram, had one of them be Sasha Jane Lowerson, the transgender surfer who is the first in history to win both the men's and women's event. He won the men's longboarding event as I can't remember his name pre-transition, but transitioned to Sasha Jane Lowerson and won a female surfing longboarding event. Bravo to her. But of course, all the cultural things that go along with that. But anyway, so that was, has been in the news. But then Rip Curl, a post with Sasha Jane wearing a, women's, obviously, swimsuit, and went on to praise her. Water Woman, didn't praise her as a trans pioneer or anything, was just Water Woman, Sasha Jane Lowerson, blah, 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 blah. As everyone would have guessed right out of the gate, obvious blowback. The way that Rip Curl dealt with that blowback is quietly deleting the post, the offending post, and then waiting a couple days and issuing an apology, so we have no and no. Like the choice to post Sasha Jane, I'll say company decision, right? If you are leaning into that, lean into that, right? Have at that. If this is what you fired Bethany ostensibly for her view, and let's not tar Bethany entirely with she's anti-trans. Bethany has only ever been on the record as being anti-women, anti-trans women in competing in women's sports. Very
Correct.
specific, right? But if that was the reason that Bethany and Rip Curl parted ways, and then for Rip Curl to double down on that by posting Sasha in a, women's bathing suit and celebrating that, that's clearly their corporate, they could do what they want, right? That's
it's a strong decision. They had lots of meetings about it. They decided to go a very strong direction.
Sure. And so once you go that direction, if you go that direction and you are so head in the sand that you didn't see what happened to Bud Light when they went that direction, or any company who goes that direction, there is a fierce backlash. I'm not saying that backlash is appropriate or good. I'm just saying that's what's happened. So
go
if you're
woke,
Rip Curl,
go woke, go broke is
exactly,
a real thing. Yeah,
exactly. And if you're Rip Curl and think, no, this Sasha Jane Lowerson post is going to go either unnoticed or applauded, in corners. And then we'll all just move on. This is showing that we are a company that, is inclusive and blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. If that's the decision you made and you didn't think, but okay, assuming that you were smart enough in the room to know we're going to have a backlash here, then you're going to have a backlash there. You stand up.
And the bet there is we survive the backlash, we get through it, because on the other side of this is correctness. And we are correct in the mind, in the eye of history, we will be correct.
Sure.
So we just need to get through this little backlash right now.
Sure.
That's the decision. But there's no decision in that room that is, we're not going to get any backlash.
No, I mean, ridiculous. And so them deleting the post, though, okay, now all of a sudden you've bent to public pressure, and now your allies on the other side, theoretically, those, people who are trans rights and surf equity and all of these people are saying, wait a second. And then to issue an apology, now you have everybody. Congratulations, Rip Curl. You have not one ally in your court. You have all the trans rights, trans activists hating you for being spineless and bending to pressure and apologizing. Because what are you apologizing for? Like, you made a decision to feature a trans surfer, and now you're apologizing for it because you didn't know they were what your apology is weak and dumb. And then you still have all the other side burning their boardies.
Right.
Insane. Like,
it's
I don't
insane.
know. I would not be surprised, to be honest, if this was big enough to tank Rip Curl. Like, I don't want it to be, but yeah.
I mean, whether or not it tanks Rip Curl, it's absolutely going to shed tens of millions of dollars off of their profits at the end of the year.
I mean, Bud Light was a major, major, major revenue driver for Budweiser, which is a
Yeah.
major, major, major conglomerate or part of, I think InBev owns them or whatever. Like, it is a billion upon billion upon billion dollar industry, and Bud Light was a billion upon billion dollar brand, right? The backlash they got was severe enough to severely, severely dent a
Yeah.
conglomerate's profits. I don't know that Rip Curl could survive a major ding in profits.
I think they could both survive it, but the difference is the magnitude. I mean, the actual number of dollars. Like for Bud Light, they shed a couple billion bucks probably in profit, whereas Rip Curl, I'd say it's more to the tune of 10 to 20 million bucks.
Sure, but it's all relative, right?
It still
Like,
hurts.
InBev can take that $1 billion hit, or whoever owns it.
Kathmandu though can take it.
Kathmandu
You know what I
can't.
mean?
I don't know that they could take tens of million. Like, it's a smaller, like, New
Well, we'll
Zealand
see.
based. I mean, we will see, but it's not good. Rip Curl is just hoping this whole thing goes away at this point, but you can't really come back from this in a good way. You can't then position yourself as woke again after this, because people know clearly you're not, and you bend under pressure, financial pressure. And then the people who are mad at him will say, no, I'm never buying Rip Curl again, no matter what. Screw you. You already lost me.
This might be the one example, those two examples, Bud Light and Rip Curl, of where we talk about there's no such thing as bad publicity.
This is bad publicity.
I don't see a good side of this publicity. There is a way to spin it and use it for your own gain, but they're not doing that at all.
No, they made such mistakes.
Each step that they turn is just stepping in another pile, basically. Did Bethany make a statement as well?
She did.
In regard to all of this?
No, Bethany just made the statement of, I think it's not fair for trans women to compete in women's events, period. After
So
this
she
started.
reasserted her point.
She reasserted her point that was not anti-trans. It was just, I don't like trans women in sport, and so over to the, like, my Chaz Smith Hates Surfing episode, must watch, by the way. I'm tired of mob mentality on both sides. Like, the mob think is unoriginal, it's uninspiring, there's no nuance there, there's no like interesting take. The Rip Curl does this, takes a pro-trans stance, so I'm going to burn my Rip Curl trunks. Or on the other side, Rip Curl has deleted a proud, beautiful trans woman. I'm going to burn them down for that, right? Like, this mob think on both sides is uninteresting. I don't know how we can't just say, as a culture, it is unfair. Trans women competing against women is unfair, and so there we have it. If you want your sport to be unfair, then let them compete. If you don't want your sport to be unfair, then don't let them compete. It is what it is. It is, to say it any other way, if you want the feelings and the whatever of trans athletes to be, if that's more important than sport, which I go ahead and make that argument. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, have all the trans women you want competing, but it's not fair. Like, it is patently not fair. And the fact that we can't say that as a culture or society is dumb. Like, that is a fact. It is not fair. Now, what you do with that fact, how you choose to, plug that fact in, whether, okay, it's not fair, so we're not going to have them compete, as one way. It's not fair, but we don't care about fairness. We care more about inclusion. Great, then they're there. But there's one class, David Lee Scales, forgotten in all of this, that I had to champion, because if not I, who? The North Korean slave, which at the end, I stand pro-trans, anti-trans, I don't care. I stand with the North Korean slave there in Pyongyang, fingers worked out down to the bone, making his Rip Curl boardies, his Rip Curl wetsuits for nothing. A slave, North Korean slave.
Is that where Rip Curl's products are made?
Don't you remember this? This was the most enjoyable story of 2016, when Rip Curl got busted for having its clothes made in a North Korean facility that employed slave labor.
No, but thank you for bringing this back. That's why I count on you for. That is incredible. Well, one thing that the vindication that I like here and through this storyline is when Bethany and Rip Curl parted ways, nobody talked about it outside of the surf industry. And I felt like I was kind of surprised by that, but through this latest shift and Bethany making a statement, that has gotten mainstream news traction. It was like Bethany commenting on Rip Curl's, whatever, has become the story, is the Bethany comment. Like I saw that in mainstream Fox News and whatever else.
I mean, it gave it a whole
making
second
headlines.
It gave it a whole second life. That's the thing. Like it did Rip Curl, the backlash to Rip Curl's post made an initial news cycle. And then Bethany's statement, which was 24 hours or whatever later, 48 hours later, made a whole different and bigger news cycle. Rip Curl has got hammered by this thing.
Yeah. And so good on Bethany for coming out of that, with the limelight. Again, no such thing as bad publicity, but she's grabbed the limelight in the bad thing that happened with the breakup with her and Rip Curl. So
do you feel sorry for Rip Curl? Is there part of you that thinks, oh, poor Rip Curl?
Not at all. No. Sorry for Rip Curl? Sorry for a corporation? No, I don't feel sorry for a corporation. Also, I will say, wading into politics as a corporation anyways is just such pointless.
It's, or if you do, like, to not know what you're doing is, somebody clearly at Rip Curl is going to get fired over this, right? Like, and I hope it's not I really love CEO Brooke Ferris, epic surfer person, wonderful. I hope she holds on. But to do this and not to think, hey, we're going to get a major, it could be a tempest in a teapot, but we're going to definitely get backlash. We got to be ready as a company. We got to stand strong. We'll put it up and we either won't release a statement. We'll just let it. People are going to burn their trunks and whatever. We're just going to let that play out. Exactly like you said, knowing we're right at the end. And this is the way to greater profitability, since that's what we care about at the end too. We're a company. We see, inclusion is where we want to be. That's bottom line is there. This thing that's happening now with everybody hating on, any kind of progressive thing is going to burn out. So we're pivoting, but to not see this coming is, it's egregious.
Side note, since we're talking about your vlog, Chess Smith Hates Surfing, I've been experimenting with something on YouTube a little bit.
A vlog of your own?
No.
Are you entering the vlogosphere with me?
No, I'm not. I'm publishing all of our content on YouTube, but not as a vlog, just kind of as it already exists as a podcast.
Yeah.
But what I'm experimenting with is AI.
Oh, how does this come in?
So like that platform, you really have to juice the algorithm, right? And it's an entirely different experience than Instagram's algorithm or whatever. And it's like,
it's really hard to get views anymore.
Exactly. Right.
Like I think a view there is worth a lot. Like it's actually worth something though, is the good thing. I think somebody's actually watching, where your Instagram can have, 300,000 hits on it, but you don't know if people actually were engaging with it.
Well, okay. So I just like looking at it as a business, right? Like our podcast audience and downloads or whatever have kind of plateaued for a while, and I'm fine with it. It's like, cool, this is our core group. We're fine with it. It's a great number. And, we'll just engage with this core group. It slowly ticks up, but it doesn't make these leaps and bounds. So anyways, as we've been filming the podcast and publishing on Instagram, we get a lot of engagement there. And in fact, lots of times kind of more engagement or more, like you said, views that might be worthless, but more views than downloads on the audio. So I'm like, okay, there's opportunity here to engage and grow the visuals, which may end up kicking back to downloads down the road. They might become podcast listeners, whatever. And I'm good at it on Instagram when I do it. I can take these videos, I can cut them down into appropriate size for Instagram, make them a little bit more salacious, and then write a caption, get people to chime in the comments, go to spar with them in the comments, and that helps. It's just engaging. It's a way for us to communicate with listeners on a visual medium. Well, so then we were publishing everything on YouTube for the last year or so, but it just doesn't get engagement because it's not designed for YouTube. If
Yeah.
you want to design something for YouTube, you talk to the camera, you cut it a certain way, you put splashy graphics, you have to have a thumbnail with a big graphic on it, and I hadn't been doing any of that, but I see the potential for the platform. And so I hired a guy to optimize the channel, and he's pitching me on the AI. He's just like, dude, they have this software and it'll write comments for you. It'll write flashy, titles. Like I'll rework your titles rather than just putting the name of the episode. We got to have like a sensational title. And so I'm like, you know what?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. My obligation is to the audience on the podcast medium. So I'll stay tried and true with the content that we're producing on the podcast medium. And even on Instagram, I feel comfortable using my own voice for that. But YouTube, it's just the Wild West. Let's go rogue. Let's just throw it out there and let the robot speak for us and see how it goes. And let me tell you, it works and it's hilarious.
Have you done it?
Yeah,
Have you
I've
seen
been
it?
doing
Have
it
you
for a
posted
couple
it?
of weeks. It's incredible.
You posted them?
So we're posting our videos, but then the robot is commenting back to people who comment on the videos and hashtagging everything, reworking the
Epic.
titles. And so it works in two ways. It's absolutely growing the channel, like in leaps and bounds that it wasn't growing in before. But the captions are so off brand, it's wild.
That's really fun. I mean, is it? I'm gonna have to go dig in.
I'm going to read one
we're
to you
done.
right now.
Okay.
I prepped one. So I published this interview with Alex Banier, who's a sander at Lamination San Diego, which is Joel Tudor's glass shop. So they're making boards. They're doing the boards for Ryan Birch and Jeff McCallum, and like super high end, incredible work, like world class laminations. So Alex Banier is a sander. I interviewed him. It's an epic interview. Anybody who cares about surfboard manufacturing, like it's detailed. Somebody comment on there favorably about the episode, and my AI bot responded to that comment with, quote, "We're all about keeping the surf practice alive and rocking, and your passion for poly resin adds a unique flavor to the mix. Let's ride the resin waves together. Hashtag surf talk, hashtag board building, hashtag surf passion."
That's amazing. What did the person respond to that?
I don't think they responded.
That is great. That is straight up hilarious.
Passion for poly resin.
I
Like,
mean,
what?
rocking too. Like,
I know, rocking.
It's-
But it works. So like it does this, and then more comments. I mean, more people find the video who are into surfing.
so it's commenting, and then that video is getting shared because people are following comments.
There's hashtags in there.
Okay.
So yeah, the hashtags must get fed to other people who like surfing. So then I've started to see comments of people like saying, "Hey man, just found your show. Can't believe I didn't know it existed for 10 years. Like thrilled I found it," stuff like
Wow.
that. So it's finding new people.
That is so great to know.
I
AI,
know.
surfer, and us.
I know.
AI.
And Surfer worked too. Like the way that Surfer is doing it, we make fun of it for using AI.
Oh,
But
for
to be
sure.
honest, I'm paying more
Crushing.
attention to Surfer now, and they're gaining tons of traction.
I mean, yeah, they have come in and dominated the surf. It really is like the quality. I mean, they have some good quote, like Jim Kempton writes on there sometimes, and who else? They have some
Jake
like,
Howard, maybe.
yeah, the bot Jake Howard does stuff. Jake
So
Howard bot.
the other thing is I just didn't have time to maintenance YouTube. You know what I mean? So like I was like, literally years went by, 2 years, a year and a half, where people were like, dude, Sid Abruzzi left you a comment. You don't even reply to Sid on YouTube, like that's just rude.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys are right. Like if people are taking the time to comment, I need to engage with them. So I still once a week or so will go in there and write like in my own voice,
A real
engage
comment?
with the person. And I also just started editing the bot's comments to actually at the end of it write commented by our AI bot,
Oh,
just
great.
for a full reveal,
Yep.
so that we
I
can
mean,
kind of get the juice of the algorithm, but still kind of let people know the truth.
People will know that you're not actually saying rockin' or ride
No.
the poly resin wave.
I mean, it is funny just on its face, but it's also funny to see what resonates with other people. Like the fact the AI bot is choosing that word because it knows that word is what will create engagement, right?
Sure.
And so it's like, man, crazy what engages people and how cheesy it actually needs to be To find resonance.
Polyresin. To find polyresonance.
Writing the resin waves together.
Yeah.
That's not even the funniest one. That was just like the first one I pulled up just to read to you, but it's like wild. It's
That is
very, very
hilarious.
funny. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Anyways, last week we did Tools to Live By, where the dad of a young kid had another the other kid's dad wanted to go surfing together. And we had a bunch of questions. We're like, does the other dad rip? Because if he rips, then you have to take his calls, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he chimed back in to give us
Great.
information. He said, DLS and Chaz, just listen to the latest grit. Thank you for your tool to live by. I started applying said tool to my situation. That being said, I haven't gone completely scorched earth and banned my infant child from seeing her best friend, as David advised. But to follow up, I'd place the guy in the upper intermediate to lower ripper category of ability. We surfed junky, chest-high waves, and he rode an appropriately short and wide, grovelly thruster, and he surfed it well. I intentionally rode a twin fin to avoid any sort of weird competitive dad heat starting in the water. I know that he's done extended trips to famous locations, destinations, and apparently is very comfortable in heavy water. I know this because he's texted me about it. we were fairly well matched in the surf, with him being slightly more technically proficient, I think. And I know you claim that ripping excuses all sins, but being too chatty on text is a step too far for me. Work.
I could understand that. I could understand that even a ripper who insists on keeping up a long chat thread through the day would be tiresome.
Yep. Yep. Well, we got to the bottom of that one.
Yep.
I teased a Pros in the Wild from last week. A lighthearted, heartwarming, actually, Pros in the Wild. So I'm going to read that to you now. David and Chaz. I, like many South African surfers, have a Kelly at J-Bay story. But the one that I want to share to you today is of a lesser-known South African legend. I was recently surfing at a spot about 45 minutes up the west coast from Cape Town. It's a well-known beachy that picks up swell when everywhere else is flat. We headed to the far left-hand corner of the bay, where a right-hand peak drops you into a wedgy, bowly wall that runs into the rocks on the shore. The last time I surfed that wave was pre-COVID, and it's also where I had an encounter with a genuine living legend. When we arrived, the peak was occupied by a solo surfer. We paddled out and hung on the inside for a bit, then figured, he's on his own. There's 3 or 4 waves in a set. I'm sure he won't mind if I join him. So I paddled over and I sat on his outside. A few nods were exchanged and comments about the conditions. He took a decent one, the first of a set, and dropped into a long, walling 4 to 5 footer. He was an older looking dude riding a retro-shaped board, wider in the front. He definitely knew how to surf. I followed his lineup marker, and from then on, we exchanged a number of waves with nothing more than a few smiles and throwaway comments about the conditions. Eventually, after another 45 minutes, he took a good one in, walked up the beach, and disappeared. A perfectly pleasant encounter on an average day with only 2 of us on it. My surf buddy had stayed mostly on the inside, but did paddle over to me to ask if I knew who that guy was and if I talked to him. I said nope and not really. That was Gavin Rudolph, he explained.
Uh-oh.
Never heard of him, I said. Sorry. My buddy seemed disappointed. What? Did you say,
It froze there for a minute, but we're all back and good.
Oh, okay, cool. My buddy seemed disappointed with me. I'm going to read back to where you didn't hear, actually. Yeah. My surf buddy had stayed mostly on the inside, but he did paddle over to me, and he asked if I knew who the guy was and if I talked to him. My answers were nope and not really. That was Gavin Rudolph, he explained. Never heard of him. I said, sorry. My buddy seemed disappointed in me and suggested that I Google him, and I did. Here's a snippet from the newspaper article printed in 1971 with the headline, Unknown Teenager Beats Top Hawaiian Surfers. And the article wrote, an unknown South African teen defeated 7 Hawaiian surfers on their home waves this week to take first prize of $2,500 in the Smirnoff Surfing Championships. Gavin Rudolph, aged 18, captured the world's richest surfing title at Sunset Beach on Oahu's North Shore. Honolulu's Billy Hamilton was second. Jeff Hackman was third. Rudolph also won $150 for the highest final total. And also, here's an excerpt from an interview that he gave about his sunset comp in years after the event. Quote, Mike Thompson, Sean Thompson, Ant and I stayed in a caravan at the grass at Haleiwa, and the surf was flat until the day before the contest. I had a brand new 710 Randy Rarick pintail that hadn't ever been waxed yet. I never surfed sunset prior, so the first opportunity was the day before the contest. It was 8 to 15 feet and perfect. I was coaxing myself to paddle out there and eventually mustered the courage. My first wave on the new board, I'll never forget. It was epic. 10 to 12 foot west peak at sunset, drop down the face, bottom turn. The rail drew a perfect line and I was mesmerized. This felt like home. Super tubes, but with warm tropical water and juice in baggies. Anyways, end quote of that article. The listener writes, the rest is history. My board, oh, I'm sorry, this is part of the article still. The rest is history. My boat went like a dream and I stayed out the whole day before the contest. The swell dropped the next day to 8 to 12 feet and sunset was just perfect. I came through all the rounds in second place, which got me into the final, which I won from Billy Hamilton and Jeff Hackman. Nobody on the beach knew who I was, and they all seemed so confused after the results were announced. It was an awesome feeling to win that prestigious event, end quote. That session I shared with him was uneventful. No drama, no dialogue. If my friend hadn't told me who he was, I never would have known. But think about an unknown teenager winning at Macking Sunset on a board he had never surfed. What the hell? Before busting down the door. I wish I would have asked him about that experience while we were surfing. Then I wondered if he ever even thinks about that sunset competition, and if so, how often. If it's too far in the past to access the memories, or if he can see it, can one still reach back and feel that feeling all these years later? I hope he still does, and I hope that he can. Work. Elo's Stool, South Africa.
I love it. I totally love it. Elo Stool.
It's an incredible idea. I mean, the fact that no name dudes, South Africa, showing up at sunset back in that era, riding a board that's unwaxed and taking the win over those icons is incredible. There's just one little news article written about it. Otherwise, it's distant memory for anybody who was there.
That's so great. And I mean, that kind of hero, that is the surf hero that surfing looks up to, right? The fact that he won is great and all that, but you don't need to be a multiple time world champion. You need to be that dude. That even the little bits, the courage that it takes to go, coax into those waves, like all of it, of course it is, but then the joy you get from it. What a great story. Thank you. Perfectly uplifting. Everything surfing should be.
Gavin Rudolph.
Gavin Rudolph is a great name too.
I had never heard that name before, so I'm glad to now know it. And shout out to Gavin. It would be amazing if this podcast found its way to Gavin and he was able to hear that story that a listener wrote in about a session that he probably doesn't even remember,
Best part about Pros in the Wild, I reckon, is oftentimes they do come back.
And they really do. Yeah. So Gavin, reach out.
Yep.
If you happen to hear this. All right. Well, Chas Smith, I think we should go to commercial break and then we can come back with Barrel or Not.
Do it.
Chas Smith, we are back from break, and I got an email this week with the headline, JJF's true father. We had it wrong all along.
Is it not John Daly?
You know what? There's another famous lookalike that it may actually be.
John Daly. John Daly has competition.
I know. I should pull up a photo real quick so that I could show you as I read this, although I have a feeling you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. David and Chaz, usually I call in, but this correspondence needed to ride shotgun with the below photographic evidence. Behold, JJF's real father. We've been speculating about the connection between one John Daly and JJF for the past few months now. Truthfully, I was aligned. The evidence was there. It was an open and shut case in my eyes. But this Sunday, I found myself going through my typical stretching routine while watching the latest episode of This Is Livin'. JJF was featured prominently on the episode, and after seeing him continuously pop up on my screen, it just came to me. His father has to be that badass motorcycle dude from Raising Arizona. Played by Leonard Smalls. I'm not sure where to take it from here, but I need to sit down. Work.
Such a good call. Raising Arizona is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Leonard Smalls is John John's father. It all
Leonard's
makes it all makes sense.
perfect sense. Leonard Smalls, at the bare minimum, is John Daly's twin brother,
Yeah.
which
Or
makes
maybe
him John Florence's something.
and I'm not even probably entirely unconvinced that John Daly, he's a multifaceted guy. He's not just a golfer. He's a golfer and a drinker and a smoker. That he might also have been a actor in a Coen Brothers film for a minute too. I wouldn't put it past John Daly that he's actually Smalls.
Very well could be.
What
He
is
could be double duty.
what is Leonard Smalls' name in the movie? He has a great name.
That's a great question.
It's like the Reaper or
Randall Tex Cobb.
yeah.
Oh no, is that right?
No, I think in Raising Arizona, his name is something. He's like
Yeah.
called
I'll
whatever it is.
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, so good.
Character name. Uh, he is portrayed by Randall Tex Cobb, who is portraying Slag in Blind Fury. No,
I
that's
think
not
so.
right.
We're
It's
gonna
the
get to the
Rufus
bottom of
Bounty
this.
Hunter. Yeah, sorry. It's hard to do in real time. This is why we need
An AI assistant.
an AI assistant, a producer doing the work. Man, people are shouting at us right now
They're
with the
so
name.
mad. They are so
Yeah,
mad.
and we
Raising
just
Arizona.
cannot do it fast enough.
I have
Okay.
seen so many times.
Well, moving on. Barrel or nah? Coming straight from Chaz Smith Hates Surfing most recent vlog post. Cardigans.
Barrel. Cardigans are such a barrel because any clothing that is both fashionable and functional. I mean, not any clothing, that's not true. There's a lot of clothing that is functional, that's not fashionable. But the cardigan, the mighty cardigan, is perfect. It is the sweater that says, I mean business, but I'm also a friendly father figure. I am your, you know, what's his name? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Forgetting everybody's names.
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, you are like Mr. Rogers chose exactly right the cardigan. You know that you are both a little slightly warmer and, fashionable, but not stuffy, not uptight.
I gotta say, I have a cardigan that I got maybe 2 years ago. It has become my favorite article of clothing. I
Yeah.
don't think about cardigans, to be honest. I never like until this question popped up, I was like, I've never even really thought about, but that one article of clothing I find myself wearing all the time around the house. It's comfortable. It's got pockets right here, so I can
Yep.
kind of always have things accessible. It's warm. It's the one that I have isn't like the one you were wearing. It's like thicker with like a shawl, so I could pull up the collar and keep myself warm. It is a kind of a perfect article of clothing.
Exactly. And if you got to pop out real quick, oh, David Lee, could you run to the store real quick? You're at that store. People are looking at you thinking, well, look at that man about town. Nobody's
No,
noticing the man in a cardigan and saying, everybody's looking at that cardigan, bro, and saying, that's the man I want to be.
I know. I don't even know how I ended up with that. It's not something I would normally choose, but it has become my favorite article of clothing, and it's stylish.
Now that you're very aware of it, are you going to be in the market for more cardigans?
I've
I
thought about it.
I encourage. I have how many good I have one, two, three. I think I have four really good cardigans in regular rotation.
That's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot of cardigans.
Yeah, it's
The
winter.
thing is, I'm apprehensive to just blanket this statement out there because there's stupid looking ones too.
There's bad of everything, but
Yeah, that's true.
the cardigan should be a staple. If you do not have a cardigan and you're a male or female listening to this show, go get yourself a cardigan.
Yep, I'm a fan.
If I
I'm
had a
going
cardigan
barrel.
brand, I would put Sasha Jane Lowerson in it on my Instagram. But then a couple days later, I would delete it. And then a couple days later, I would apologize for it.
The cardigan is the non-binary article of clothing.
Sure, it is.
You could wear your wife's cardigan and your wife could wear your cardigan.
That's true. That's true. So I wouldn't even have to delete it. I could just say,
Nope.
what? This is the women's car. I mean, men's, I mean, then I'd have to delete it.
It's for everybody.
Yeah.
Barrel or nah from a listener. Bragging about your kids' achievements in public, scholarships, etc.
Yeah, is a tough one, man. This is a tough one because it's probably a nah, but okay, here we go. Caveated, I suppose, as some of these are. It's a nah if you're using your child's accomplishments to get clout for yourself. If you're trying to up yourself in somebody else's eyes because your kid did something, and if that's the reason, and you know if that's the reason or not that you're doing it, then it's a no barrel. Using your kid as a step on a ladder to your greater, like people thinking greater of you, no barrel.
Yeah.
But if you are so proud that you just can't help it, that it like bubbles out of you, and you even know it's obnoxious and that you're turning people off by, but you just can't help it, I'm gonna say that's a barrel. I'm gonna say being a proud parent is a barrel. And bubbling accidentally, like try to keep a lid on it. But if you just can't someday, have at it.
I'm going
Proud
no.
parent.
I'm going no barrel
You think
because
being a proud parent is no barrel?
being a proud parent's fine. But the question here was about in public.
Yeah.
And so in private settings, you can brag to your friends, like you are proud of your kid. But in public, discretion.
I
You know what I
hear
mean?
you.
Like, and my kid knows that I'm proud of him and I'll prove it to him in a million ways. But I don't need to go out there and put a bumper sticker on my car talking about he was the honor roll student or
I'm not
anything like
saying that.
that.
I'm not saying that's a no barrel. Exactly. I agree with you there. Okay, but what about, see, here we go. This is this slippery slope, David Lee Scales. When young Austin comes home and wins his first stripe on his belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, uh, are you going to post it on Instagram?
Hell no.
What if he wins state title in his age division of 4? He like beat 6-year-olds and stuff. He like strangled them out. He wins California.
I mean, I don't see myself posting that type of stuff on
Really?
Instagram.
But
I don't. I don't
what if
know.
young Austin then looks back through your feed 50 years from now? You're dead. He's looking through the feed and said, I guess my dad wasn't proud of me. Well, I see a bunch of him riding that resin wave. But
there's a dignified way to do it. I don't know. There's also things that are like private family things that don't need to be put on blast. And it's almost the more proud I am about those details, the less we need to put it on blast.
I
So
hear
I
you.
don't see public as being the right place to showcase the affection for my kids, well, the affection for my kid, period, or the affection for his accomplishments.
I'm gonna say though, sometimes the public square, Instagram, whatever, Facebook, wherever you are, happen to be in the public square, the proud parent, you just can't help it. It like the bubble bubbles.
Here's the other prop thing that I think is affecting my decision making here is that I remember this one couple that my parents were friends with who could not stop talking about their children's accomplishments. Their kids have done far less with their lives than me and my siblings have done. You know what I mean? In fact, they've been degenerates in society, but their parents thought that they were the greatest gift to civilization. And I feel like those things go hand in hand. Like the parents buttering up their kids in that way publicly all the time was actually detrimental to the kids' own growth and well-being.
I'll give you that, that the accomplishment has to be a real accomplishment. If you're bragging publicly about your kid, if you say, my kid just got, one dodgeball tournament at school,
Yeah.
then, okay, cool, bro. But if the accomplishment is real, like it's a genuine accomplishment, young Austin beating every Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wrestler in California. That's
I'm
something.
going I'm going to allow one brag every 5 years.
5 years. That's a long time. I think
It has to be earned.
for sure, but I think you should shorten that to a brag a year.
I think this is a slippery slope.
Brag a year if that thing is worth bragging about. Some
Your
years go
kid,
by where hey man, you didn't do anything this year. Sorry about it.
for most kids, I mean, your kid has to
Yeah.
be incredibly special to once a year do something that is so impressive that it warrants, shoving it in your other friends' faces.
When was the last time a friend or somebody you knew or somebody you heard bragging about their kid made a brag about their kid and you said, whoa, that is something.
I mean, never. I
You've
mean,
never
I
had,
can't think of one. I mean, here's not answering your question, but I watched Shane Dorian's kid and I go, that kid's incredible. He's doing incredible things all the time. Or Sierra Kerr for that. But I don't see Shane Dorian ever pointing saying, look what Jackson did. I
he
see
does,
Jackson doing it and earning my respect as a viewer, but never once Shane saying, look what my kid did.
that's true, but he does post pictures of Jackson doing stuff.
And we make the assessment whether it's noteworthy or not.
Yeah, but the fact that he's putting, I mean, that's kind of a humble brag right there. That's like,
It
hey man, I'm
is.
gonna put this thing up that's so sick that it's undeniably cool. Nothing you can say, bro.
Yeah. Well, we remain divided.
Okay, I'm
We
still
remain.
barrel.
I'm going no barrel. Keep it to yourself. Um, Barrel or not, hooting someone off a wave. And what have we deemed the acceptable and unacceptable ways to call someone off a wave when taking off? A sharp, quick whistle, a hey, a yeah, barrel or not.
Barrel completely. If you let somebody fully drop in on you and you remain mute, that is not cool, man. Like you can be, you don't have to necessarily run up on that person and cause violence, but you sure as heck, for the sake of everyone in the lineup, you need to know because nobody likes somebody dropping in blind, right? Like look around, swivel your head. If some bro is choosing to drop in on you, that's one thing. But if he's accidentally, you need to let him know, hey, you just dropped in on me. And my way I do it is I got the a loud whistle. So I recommend everyone developing that skill of the uh
Yeah.
because it's sharp and it gets everybody's attention right away. I'll also do the oi if I'm really close. If they like drop right in front of me, I'll give them the grunt.
I give him a hew, hew, kind of a high pitch, like, but it has to be high pitched. It has to cut through all other noise. But absolutely, it is okay to hoot somebody off a wave. It really comes down to what style of hoot is appropriate, you know?
I'm gonna
Um,
say you just gotta whistle because the a man going you woo,
yeah,
it's not dignified, right?
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
really hard to make because in that moment you are alpha, you are like marking your territory as the alpha male in that situation, right? You are saying this wave is mine, you are taking what's mine. This is, and so if you do that in a high-pitched voice, that doesn't carry the gravitas. So learn that whistle.
Prac- practice a whistle is, I think, where we're landing here is just
Yes.
work on the whistle and then bring it out with you, prepared to go at any moment's notice.
Yep. Yep.
You know what I've actually, now that I really think about it, what I've become accustomed to doing in recent years is like a really thought out and in advance, like, hey man, I'm going right.
Oh,
Like an
yeah.
actual like sentence delivered without any franticness at all. And it's a position, it really is kind of a power move because it's like, this is 5 seconds before I catch this wave, which means I have the confidence that I'm going to actually catch this wave. I'm also delivering it with the same cadence of speech as if we were just sitting having a cup of coffee. So the exertion that I'm putting into catching this wave isn't even wearing me out. And it's just a confident move like, hey, bro, I'm going right. And then they're like, oh, okay.
So solid. And so like, because every single time I'll see somebody paddling and I don't know what my mind's thinking. My mind is like, even before, we're not like, I'm not saying paddling for the wave, but paddling to get in position. That's the time to say it. Like, why are you paddling to get in position, bro? This is my wave. Like,
Right.
you
Exactly.
don't need to be worrying yourself right now. Like
Exactly.
and that is so much better because having them drop in front of you, whether a good percentage of the time it takes something out of that wave. Like, you have to
Yeah,
go around them, or even if like you hoot them and they stop paddling, there's still a little crumble there, whatever it may be. Be well in advance. Don't bother yourself. There's probably another one out the back. You can maybe
exactly.
go try to get. This one's mine.
Or I'll also do the thing where I can see that they're trying to assess my positioning, and I'll just say, hey, I'm looking left on this
Yeah,
so that they can just kind of focus on looking at the right, you know?
just you do you, but
Yeah.
you do you as long as it doesn't get in my way.
I'm the one with priority right here to make the decision whether I'm going right or left. I'm giving you plenty of advance notice. I'm going left. Go ahead and just have at the right, kind of a thing.
Do you think that's what Philippe Toledo was doing out in the lineup at Pipeline?
No, I do not think that's what he was doing.
Here's a question for you, David Lee Scales, real quick before we end. Uh, the where does Filipe Toledo, is he so self-delusional that he's strutting around the North Shore right now, getting ready for sunset, kind of, getting rid of drinking his Pepto-Bismol, getting healthy again. Is he showing his face? Or is he, does he have an ounce of reality left in him where he knows that he is a laughing stock and he should get out of town real quick?
I think he maintains a thin veneer of everything's cool, bro. I'm a two-time world champ. Like I can kind of strut, I can go to the grocery store and hold my head high, but it is barely covering up a deep sense of embarrassment.
But here's the thing too. He's still on the North Shore. It's still pumping somewhere theoretically. I mean, the contest didn't run today, but he should, if he wanted to put all rumors to bed, he would go out and charge, somewhere else.
Dude, I meant to say that to you at the very top of the show was there's no need for him to get on social media and write a diatribe in his own defense. The only defense that he needs is to post a clip of him getting a big barrel somewhere.
A pipeline, not like a
Pipeline or chopu. Pipeline or chopu.
Yeah, a big sunset kind of
Even
wave.
better. Even better, go to Jaws. Go to Jaws and take off, go to Waimea, and everybody, we would all be forced to shut up. The days leading up to the event, Gabe was out there getting waves. Italo was out there getting waves at Pipe, not Jaws. And obviously, all the CT surfers are out there practicing for waves. Felipe is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
All that he has to do is prove us wrong, and he will not. He has not for years.
Well, thankfully, on Beach Grit today, if he wants to leave the North Shore, this morning's post, Travel and Leisure magazine has identified the world's beach with the calmest waters on Earth, not one wave. And it's the aptly named Baby Beach in Maui. So Filipe Toledo should, hop on a plane, go to Baby Beach, and recharge.
It's waiting for you.
Yep, it's right there. It's
right there.
Inter-island flight away.
20-minute flight.
Boom.
Well, exciting. We will watch the rest of the event and report on it right here next week on The Grit. I wonder what AI comments my bot is going to generate for this week's show.
I hope it talks a lot about Pip Toledo, but maybe it will not pick up Pip Toledo as the talking point amongst the broader public. Maybe Filipe Toledo is a small story.
The Sydney Morning Herald wrote about it, and the headline was about him chickening out.
It's amazing.
So it's big news. It's big news.
Good.
We just need to say the word poo-poo touch more, so the bot starts picking that up as well.
Yeah,
so we're gonna learn how to train the bot is what we're gonna do.
Poo-poo touch is important, bot.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody go to Camp Shred this weekend if you're in San Diego, and check out Weekend Vans, and of course go to drinkag1.com/surf to live your optimal life.
If Toledo drank it, he would charge.
Absolutely.
And he would not get food poisoning.
It would protect his gut and give him the power he needs at Pipe. All right, Chaz Smith, until next week.
Keep work.
Oh my God, I had a sneeze coming. I was trying to rush the finish. All right, all good?
All good.
Okay.